Yalla, get the children inside.
What's happening? Look at the sky.
There in the clouds, something's there.
Yalla, run, the sky.
Wait, my back.
Keep moving.
Global oil markets are already reacting to this conflict. We are getting reports of further escalation in the region.
Imagine waking up next week and everything costs more. Not because your country is at war, not because your government made a new policy, but because two nations, thousands of miles away, exchanged threats. How is that possible, and why does it keep happening to Africa? Stay with me and I will explain how and why. In 1973, during the Yom Kippur War, oil-producing Arab nations imposed an embargo on countries supporting Israel. Oil prices quadrupled, from roughly $3 per barrel to nearly $12. That single decision triggered a global recession. But here is the part rarely discussed. Many African nations had just gained independence. Their economies were fragile. Their currencies were young. Their import systems were weak. Fuel prices skyrocketed. Transportation costs surged. Food prices climbed. Countries like Nigeria, ironically oil-rich but poorly refined, Kenya, Ghana, experienced inflation shocks that set development back years. The question is, did Africa start that war? No, but Africa absorbed the shock. To understand why Africa keeps feeling Middle Eastern conflicts, we must go back further. In 1916, the Sykes-Picot Agreement, European powers redraw the Middle East without local consent. Artificial borders, artificial alliances. Sound familiar? Because Africa experienced the same during the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885. Colonial powers carved the continent into extractive zones, not self-sustaining economies. They built railways towards ports, infrastructure for exports, economies dependent on external markets, not internal resilience. So when oil prices spike today, African economies still heavily dependent on imported fuel, imported machinery, imported refined petroleum, feel it immediately. Here is the question. If your economic system was designed to depend on others, can you ever be insulated from their wars? So now let's talk real numbers. When tensions rise between Iran and Israel, oil markets react instantly. Even rumors can push prices up by 5 to 10%. Iran sits near the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 20% of global oil supply passes through that narrow corridor. If instability threatens it, markets panic. Now look at Africa. Over 40 African countries are net oil importers. Even oil producers like Nigeria import refined fuel due to limited refining capacity. Fuel subsidies in countries like Egypt strain government budgets when global prices rise. So when oil rises by 10% per barrel, governments pay more. Transport costs rise. Food prices increase. Inflation spreads. And inflation hurts the poor first. Now ask yourself, if oil spikes tomorrow because of Middle East escalation, who feels it first? The trader in Kampala, the taxi driver in Dakar, the farmer in rural Zambia, or the policymaker in Washington? The Middle East isn't just about oil. It is a major trade partner for Africa. The UAE alone is one of Africa's largest re-export hubs. China imports Middle Eastern oil to manufacture goods that Africans buy. So conflict doesn't just raise oil prices. It disrupts shipping routes, insurance premiums, currency stability, investment confidence. During past oil shocks, African currencies depreciated rapidly. Debt servicing costs increased. External borrowing became more expensive, which means a conflict thousands of miles away can increase African debt burdens without a single African soldier involved. Now, let's make this personal. When fuel prices rise, transport rises, food rises, electricity rises, school fees become harder to pay, small businesses shrink, youth unemployment grows, and frustration increases. History shows us something uncomfortable. Economic shocks often trigger political instability. Not always, but often. And Africa has experienced enough externally triggered economic shocks. So here is the uncomfortable question. How long can a continent grow while absorbing global economic aftershocks it did not create? This is not just Africa. Europe feels energy shocks. Asia feels supply chain disruptions. America feels inflation pressure. But Africa's vulnerability is amplified because many economies are still structurally dependent. This issue is not the war itself. The issue is systematic exposure, and that exposure has historical roots. Africa Untold is not about blaming. It is about understanding. Understanding patterns, understanding history, understanding economic consequences. Because when we understand patterns, we prepare differently. So I want to ask you, if global conflicts continue to affect African economies, should African nations accelerate energy independence? Should regional trade become stronger? Should industrialization move faster? Or is Africa destined to always feel the heat? I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? How would the rising oil prices affect your country right now? Drop your country in the comments. Let's map this together. Because history is not just what happened, it's what keeps happening. And Africa deserves to tell it clearly. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories.